What's up, guys? It's Dan from Coin Bureau Trading. Today, we're going to take a look at why the next 48 hours are going to be absolutely critical for the crypto market. If this is the kind of content that you enjoy, then be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ping that notification bell. Before we get started, do keep in mind that nothing in this video is financial advice. It's just my personal analysis of the crypto market. Your analysis could be different, and if it is, that's awesome, because the more difference of opinion that we have, the better investors and the better traders we're all going to become. So basically, guys, the main reason why the next 48 hours are going to be critical for crypto has to do with the fact that we're going to be getting more jobs data today and more jobs data tomorrow. Today, we're going to get initial jobless claims, and tomorrow, we're actually going to get the unemployment rate. Some of you guys might have heard that the jobs data that came out yesterday was weaker than expected. And this is where things get, I guess, a little bit tricky and also a little bit critical. It's not entirely clear whether weaker economic, or I guess weaker jobs data is bullish or bearish. You could even see that in the charts yesterday, there was like basically some pretty mixed just chopping, during the day. So it's going to be interesting to see, if we do see initial jobless claims come in higher than expected, and the unemployment rate also comes in higher than expected. Like if we continue to see a deterioration in the jobs market, it's going to be interesting to see, will the markets rally interpreting that as the sign that that the Fed is going to cut, or will they interpret that as a sign that the economy is entering a recession and that the markets will sell off? But before I get to that, before I get to some charts, I do need to quickly point out that there have been rumors going around. I don't think anything has been hammered out yet, but last I read was that Trump and Xi Jinping are expected to have a phone call tomorrow. So this is another factor that, of course, could be bullish or bearish for the markets, depending on how that goes, assuming it happens. So with those factors in mind, guys, we can now turn to the charts here. I want to start off actually with the 10-year yield. It's basically like a long-term interest rates, let's say, and you can see that in the last few days, we've seen the 10-year yield potentially break out of this, you could say like ascending wedge pattern. And if you zoom out a bit, you can see that I expect the 10-year yield actually to fall all the way down to somewhere around 3.5%, which would be pretty crazy, pretty unprecedented. But I do think that all it would be doing is basically just following this trend line lower, and then after we see the 10-year yield touch that, then it'll probably continue heading higher as interest rates start rising as a result of rising inflation later in the year. But let's not get too much into the details. The point is that here in the short term, it looks like the 10-year yield is starting to fall, which is basically bullish because lower yields basically means lower interest rates, which should be a bullish tailwind for assets. And the last thing I guess I'll mention before we start getting into more charts is that the ideal scenario for crypto to rally, especially for altcoins, is if we have a weakening economy where inflation is falling. And it looks like we're getting that. But again, the question is, if we see too much economic weakening, meaning like if the jobs data is really, really bad, then you run the risk of like going into the recession territory, in which case, obviously, that's obviously not bullish, right? But the bullish scenario is, again, falling inflation plus a weakening economy. And, yesterday's jobs data suggests the economy is weakening. And so long as we continue to see like data that looks like that, without it getting super recessionary and spooking the markets, then it should continue to be bullish. And if you're kind of freaking out and worrying about crypto, again, I think that the reason why crypto is kind of a little bit sluggish is maybe there's a lot of profit taking going on, because if we look at the stock market here, this is the S&P 500, stocks are looking completely fine. Like they look like they have an inverse head and shoulders here. You might remember from yesterday's video, it's the same thing for the Russell 2000. We have a nice inverse head and shoulders, and it actually looks like stocks are going to break higher. Does that mean it's going to happen tomorrow? No. Maybe we could see like a day or two of pullback, and maybe we see the breakout higher next week. But of course, if stocks are going to be heading higher, and if the macro backdrop is looking good, then it's unlikely that crypto is going to see another leg lower, which of course brings me to the Bitcoin chart. So we're looking now at Bitcoin, guys, on the 4-hour chart. And of course, I'm sure you've seen a lot of people drawing like this like long-term trend line showing that this long-term uptrend was broken and that Bitcoin is going to collapse. I'm not so sure about that. Again, if the macro backdrop is bullish, if stocks are looking bullish, I find it hard to see how Bitcoin and crypto would fall like 5% or 10%. Is it possible? Always. But for there to be kind of like a bearish, let's say, decoupling, I don't think that's like something to necessarily stand on or bet on. And again, if we just look here on the, and I'll even draw out the line if you're having a hard time seeing it, we can see that there's a lot of support around this, let's say, 104K level for Bitcoin. Like there's a lot of support around here. We can see the Bollinger Bands are, well, it's basically holding the Bollinger Bands, I would say, here on the 4-hour. Of course, it's a little bit below, but it's been chopping around this, if we really wanted, we can even say that there's also some kind of like inverse head and shoulders pattern forming here as well, and that we'll see a bounce here in the short term. Does that mean that Bitcoin's going to explode to new all-time highs? Not necessarily, but I'm just making the case that, the idea that Bitcoin's now going to collapse and roll over from this level, I don't necessarily think that's super likely. Bitcoin could continue to chop, and if anything, I think it could see a bounce again, potentially as a result of this jobs data that comes out today and tomorrow. However, as I noted, if that jobs data comes in super, super weak, then, that could spook investors, and we could see a little bit of a recessionary scare. And yes, that could cause Bitcoin, let's say, to drop back down, I don't know, like to just below 100K, or maybe just have a little wick like down to 99K to really spook the bulls, right? But again, as things stand right now, like at the time of shooting on Thursday, June 5th, Bitcoin does not look like it's rolling over yet. In fact, it looks like it have a little bit of a bounce, but again, it depends on what happens with this jobs data that comes in later today or tomorrow. So don't be panicking like at all those trend lines, like that the uptrend is over and that Bitcoin's going to collapse. I don't think that's the case just yet. And of course, similar idea, if we look at Ethereum, this is now on the daily, we can see that Ethereum has basically been chopping sideways for a month now. Like since May 10th, it's been chopping almost perfectly sideways. Now it's starting to squeeze. And when you see this squeeze on the Bollinger Bands, what that tells you is that you're about to see a massive move to the upside or a massive move to the downside. And again, if we zoom out here to Ethereum, is it possible that Ethereum could see a little bit of a pullback? Sure, like maybe to 2200, something like that. But again, like if you just like look at it, you can see that this is very, very clearly, we had like a bottoming pattern here, and now we're in a process of recovery. So I would say that the chances of Ethereum rallying higher are higher than the chances that it's going to roll over, especially when you consider, guys, that there's a CME gap for Ethereum somewhere around 3200. So you combine, the CME gap with around 3200 with the possibility that this jobs data that comes out could potentially, be a bullish tailwind if it's a little bit weak and results in interest rate expectations falling. Of course, that'll be priced into the market right away. If Trump's call with Xi Jinping, assuming it even happens, if that goes well, also that's going to result in a risk-on rally, right? And that would be a potential catalyst in the next 24 to 48 hours that would take Ethereum higher here up to that CME gap around 3200. And of course, that brings me to Solana. What's interesting about Solana is that it seems to be following Bitcoin quite closely. If you look on the 4-hour, it's a pretty similar pattern. Of course, Solana looks a little bit weaker, but it's the same idea. If we zoom out here, again, you can literally draw a trend line here, and everyone who's saying that Solana is going to completely collapse, well, I'm not so sure. Like, yeah, maybe it'll go down to like 150, maybe like 145. But again, like the idea that it's going to completely roll over and it's over, I don't think so. I think like, we had a little bit of a, maybe short-term kind of like profit taking pattern here, and now we're kind of back just like to the long-term support that you can see goes back, all the way basically to February. I don't think that Sol's going to be rolling over and finding new lows or whatever, which is of course what most people are calling for. But again, the data just doesn't support that, and especially when we go back to the stocks, to the small caps, the stock charts and the small cap stock charts look amazing. So why would then we see like a complete rollover in altcoins? It just doesn't make any sense. There would have to be some shock that is specific to crypto that would cause these altcoins to crash, and I don't see anything like that coming in the near future, to be honest. But anyways, yeah. So I guess to sum things up, we're gonna have more jobs data coming out over the next couple of days, plus a potential call between Trump and Xi Jinping. Depending on how these catalysts kind of play out, either we'll see Bitcoin continue to chop, or maybe see a slight move lower. But I do think that this looks pretty bullish here. It looks like we're going to see a bounce. Ethereum is looking super bullish on the daily. Solana also looks like it could potentially be doing, I don't know, some kind of similar bottoming pattern to Bitcoin here. Maybe there's also some kind of inverse head and shoulders or double bottom, or pick whatever bottoming pattern you want. But when you can see that for the last week that it's been consolidating around a range, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to continue heading lower. That's kind of telling you that, wait a minute, a lot of people are stepping in to buy here around 150, right? And so the chances of a bounce from that level, I think, are pretty high. And of course, the reason why we look at Ethereum and Solana, if you watch yesterday's video, is because most altcoins with economic value exist on Ethereum and Solana. So if you look at ETH and Sol and you have a sense of what they're going to do, then chances are you have a sense of what most altcoins are going to do. And of course, Bitcoin leads everything, right? So if Bitcoin's looking all right, could chop, could see a little bit of a little bounce in the short term here. I don't know, maybe to like 107K or something. And we can see that ETH is looking strong. Looks like it could squeeze to the upside with a CME gap around 3200. And we can see that Solana has potentially found like some pretty strong support here around 150, potentially seeing a bounce, I don't know, to 160, 170. I personally think it'll get to around 170. Anyways, guys, if you did make it this far and you did find that information helpful, then take a second to help us out by checking out the Coin Bureau deals page. We have a Binance deal with a 20% trading fee discount and up to $600 in bonuses. It's the biggest discount that you can get. It's available exclusively through the Coin Bureau. Taking advantage of that deal is super simple. Click that sign up now button in the description or in the comments. It'll take you to a page that looks like this. Enter your email or phone number. It takes 2 minutes to sign up. If you're not able to sign up for Binance, then check out the other deals we have. We have deals on Arkham, which is available to US users, and deals on other exchanges that are also available to users in jurisdictions who might have a hard time accessing Binance. And when you use these deals, you get a trading fee discount. The exchange gets a new user, and we get a cut of the trading fees. That's how we make our money. We're not like shilling any crypto projects here, despite what some haters might say in the comments. We make all of our money honestly, and that's why the Coin Bureau, not this channel, but the main channel, is the largest, because we've stood by, let's say, these very basic, you could say, like ethical principles since the beginning, whereas let's say other creators have not done the same. Anyways, guys, if you did make it this far, then be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, ping that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next one.